Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I am a comic book artist, writer, creator, self publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you enjoy these live streams, would like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you would like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you would like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you read digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net and you can pick up my books there. And speaking of the monthly Patreon live stream, we have one coming up tomorrow night. It will be at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we'll have a voice channel open on Discord. So anyone who wants to come in, hang out, can come in and not just type in the chat, but we can sit and talk and rap about art. And I'll be continuing my my long-running series of art book studies from Walt Reed's The Figure. And I see that the chat is already rearing to go. I see we've got Omar hanging out. Good to see you. Says, welcome back, my friend. Katie Cat in the chat. Good to see you, Katie. Says, good morning, good noon, good evening, and good night. You've got all time zones covered. Awesome. Love that. And speaking of cats, what do we have on the tablet here today? So we're continuing with this piece I was working on of this cat cowgirl. And celebrations. Katie says, my birthday is coming up in 2 days. Well, happy birthday. And I hope you get tons of art supplies and tons of great artwork to look at, and that you have a joyous, festive birthday. Happy birthday. Let's see. So I was very, very seriously considering bailing on this piece because I thought about it in the long run. It's not like any of the other pieces that are in my normal body of work. You know, I don't have a lot of anthropomorphic artwork or comics. And I was thinking, why am I going through the time of finishing this? And I really was going to start this live stream by just shifting over to working on the cover for another comic book that I was getting ready to start. And the only thing that kept me from shifting gears is that I was just thinking about how I hate giving up on a piece. And I knew that, knowing myself, I kind of would be working on it in the background. This is the thing. I told myself, well, you don't have to finish it. You can set it to the side and just kind of come around to it when you have time, work on it, pick away at it, in the background. But here's the thing. If I am picking away at it in the background, then why not just finish the thing? Because this is one of those things where 5 years from now, I would come back and look at the file and be like, how come I never finished this? So, hell, let's just finish it now. Let's see here. Jay King is in the chat. Good morning. Good day, brother. People. Good to see you too as well. Katie says, thank you so much. I'll be turning 20. You know what? 20 is a great year. You have so much bright creativity ahead of you. Oh, what I wouldn't give to be 20 again. If I could be 20 again, but married to my wife now, that would be awesome. Like, I realize there's so many things about where my life is right now that I'm extremely grateful for and happy for. And I would not give that up to be 20 again. But if I could take her and my cats with me and go back to 20, that would be awesome. Let's see here. Katie says, you should have her winking and smiling. That's the vibe I got from this pose. You know what? Not a bad suggestion. I think I might do that. Katie says, crunch them babies. Let's see here. Well, I think before I want to dive any further into this piece, I want to do a little color comp. And also, I realized that this whole thing of me having a sheet of reference off to the side, I need to start when I put these reference compilations together, I need to make them like make sure they don't take up any more than like one third of the page because what I really should have had is this all the way over here going down to the bottom and just picked whatever ones I could fit, but keep it off to the side and allow myself more space for the actual drawing because it's a drawing. I need the space to draw. All right, let me just merge these two down. And I see a couple of layers in here that I just don't need. I'm just going to ditch. And let me move the main figure. I'm just going to move it off to the side so I can kind of do color thumbnails around it. Let's see here. And Katie says, I pray I don't feel like turning back time when I get to your age. Well, I think that it's less about turning back time and more about enjoying whatever experience you're having now. Because no matter what stage of life you're at, there's going to be challenges and difficulties, but there's also going to be beautiful moments and people and things around you to appreciate. And I think that if you can lean into the fact of appreciating whatever the positive things you have in life at whatever stage you're at, that is what gets you through all the challenges at all the different stages in life. So, yeah, don't worry about how you're going to feel about it 20 years from now. Just worry about, I mean, you seem like somebody that's full of energy and a zest for life, and a zest for creativity, and a great sense of humor. Lean into that. Enjoy that. Enjoy the things, enjoy the people around you that make you happy, enjoy the things that you love, and just be present for that. That's the best thing I can tell you. And if you do that at every age in life, you won't have any regrets. See here. Katie says, how lovely you would take your wife and cats with you. I hope I'm like you in that regard someday. Well, I hope so too. All right. Let's see here. Thumbnails, color thumbnails. Because all of this has been very, very rough sketching. And part of I really do think the main reason why I'm being so stubborn about wanting to finish this is, oh wait, I've got my figure drawing pencil on here. Let me switch to my illustration pencil. I'm stubborn because I have not been doing a lot of finished artwork. And I recognize that that's something that's starting to become a problem for me. So I want to get back to that place where I can make things that feel complete. I mean, not that I'm incapable of it, but just I have not been doing it often and it has not been going well when I do. You know, not when I say not well, what I mean to say is it's not as smooth and fluid as it has been at some points in my life. And what I'm trying to do now is get back to that fluidity, if that makes any sense. Hmm. Whoops, that's too much there. So I'm kind of starting with painting in the background and moving forward. Hey, Paul, my buddy Paul Pate in the chat says, "What up?" Just working on this cat illustration. I was saying earlier that I was ready to bail on this thing because it doesn't actually fit into my body of work. But I'm too goddamn stubborn to bail on it. I want to finish it just because bailing on a piece feels like me admitting I can't do something, and I am too stubborn for that. I'm too stubborn to say, "Well, I guess I got to let this one go," or you can't win them all." I am too stubborn for that. I am just so stubborn, so stubborn. Let's see here. Turn this to like a cool gray. I'm kind of stealing colors from this particular piece of reference, this Gil Elvgren Western. I'm stealing colors from that, but I'm changing them somewhat. Instead of going for the full blue, it's kind of Purple Mountain's Majesty. Like I'm almost going for like little purplish clouds, purplish mountains, purple mountain shadows. And man, I will tell you, one thing that I've been realizing, particularly just looking at a lot of the artwork that's in the new area where I live, like I really got to spend some time outdoors doing plein air sketching, maybe some plein air watercolor. Which I mean, it's weird because watercolor. Some people are like, they love watercolor. It's very not intimidating and it's very open to beginners. It's, not particularly expensive. But then also there's people who are like watercolor is so hard to control. I hate it. I'm not intimidated by watercolor, but it's certainly just because I'm not intimidated by it doesn't mean I don't think it's hard. Um, I mean, hell, I think every aspect of making art is difficult. And I just presume, well, whatever I do, if it's something I haven't done before, I'm going to suck for a while. And that's okay. Let's see here. Byron in the chat says, "Hey, hey, people. Hey, hey, Byron. Good to see you too." Um, let's see here. Whoop, jumping around reference. Katie says, luckily, the brain and our habits are plastic, moldable, changeable. So by finishing this piece, you'll knock down the first domino and getting back to that finishing habit. I like where your head's at, leaning into the positivity. I'm feeling you. Thank you. And Katie says, I love how vibrant that reference is. I can foresee this piece having a great contrast between the blazing sun and the cool havens of shade. Yeah, this definitely, well, the reference has that. We'll see where mine ends up because I'm starting with just a general, simple blue skies, you know, brown, but brown, warm blue skies, warm earth, cool mountains. But the fact is in this piece, you have a figure dressed in bright clothing. Whereas in mine, I haven't really decided what color I'm going to make her vest, but the cat herself is going to be a black and white. She's going to be a tuxedo cat. And so I think whatever clothes she's wearing are really going to emphasize a lot of that contrast. So it's like having something black and white on top of something, which means I'm gonna have to decide to either push the background to be brighter and have the foreground figure be monochromatic, which is a strange contrast because usually you have the background more muted and your figure is brighter. Or I'm gonna have to decide whether it's gonna be monochromatic figure with bright clothing on top with muted background. That's gonna be an interesting, I don't know which one I'm gonna go yet, and that's the reason why I'm doing this little color thumbnail, is to kind of see if I can suss that out. Let's see here. Byron says, I feel like watercolor is an unintentional mentality check. The more loose you are, the less intimidating it is. Yeah, I mean, watercolor is one of those things where we're often given watercolor sets as a kid, and if you just let it happen, if you just go in and play with it, have fun with it, it is very, very chill and it's fun and invigorating. Like, it doesn't need to have a lot of difficult build up or mental challenges to it. You can just go in and have fun and create. And I think that a lot of the difficulties that we have with it are kind of self-made. But to me, it does feel like it's a very open medium in terms of like entering, trying something that's new, that's different, that you haven't tried before. Let's see here. And thanks for the cosign there. Paul says she looks great. Embrace your stubbornness. For the most part, I've tried to escape my stubbornness. I mean, the weird thing is I've been trying to tell myself over this, like this year is the year where I said, I'm going to stop doing stupid shit. Like if there's something that my brain said, okay, this is something like I was in therapy for probably a good 6 months. I don't think it was a year, but I was in therapy for a while, a couple years ago. And the most important thing that I took away from it was my therapist telling me this mantra: does this serve you? Because whatever you're like, whether it's a physical activity that I'm doing, a person that I'm encountering with, inner self talk, um, whenever I feel frustration or anxiety building up, or just something where I'm like, what, like I'm unhappy with something, I just ask myself, does this serve me? Is this why am I doing this? Because a lot of times we realize we're doing things or forcing ourselves or putting ourselves in positions for reasons that aren't necessarily valid, or we don't have to. And relating to that, I was going to bail on this piece because I was asking myself, I don't think this serves me in terms of like getting back to making comics, um, or just doing a piece. Like, for instance, I have a piece that I finished the other day that very much serves me. Like, you guys have seen me drawing a bunch of Medusa creatures. I have a piece that I put on my wall back here, a drawing that I did, and it's just Prismacolor. It's just a close up of a gorgon, a Medusa creature that I was like, yeah, I want to. I've had this little thumbnail laying around, and I never really drew a piece of it, so I was like, let me just draw this, and I drew it, and I loved it, and that's one of those challenges of letting yourself go and giving yourself the space to just make something and have fun with it and be creative. And I don't think I've been giving myself the space to just enjoy the creative process as much, which is, it's kind of the point of being any type of artist. You don't want to say, because this is just too hard to do just because someone says you should do it. You really kind of have to love making art because it's really, really hard. Like people all the time, when they try to lowball an artist, they're like, "Yeah, but you're doing something you love. You shouldn't. I shouldn't have to pay you a lot of money to do it." And I'm like, the only reason to do this is it's like the money is because we have to survive, but the doing it unto itself, it's not. Oh, the doing should be the payment. It's like we have to do it, but damn, it is so hard. Um, I remember, I want to say that I've mentioned this quote before, and I want to say it's the comic writer and artist Tim Seeley that I heard a interview with him years ago saying that he wished that when you drew, that blood would tears and blood would pour out of your eyes onto the page, so that people would just have a sense of how, like a physical representation of how challenging the act of making art is. Well, he was talking specifically about making comics, but I would say it's true of a lot of arts: writing, music, acting, all of it. The creative process is a challenging one. Let's see here. Paul says, I love the way watercolor looks. Don't think I'll ever try it though. You know what? And it's crazy because I look at the children's book that you're doing, and I got to tell you, that would look beautiful in watercolor. Um, and there are watercolor brush packs where you just like they even give you a digital textured paper so that you can make the whole thing feel like it's drawn on watercolor paper. And the results I've seen look really, really good. So that's something you might want to consider for playing with that. But what I was saying originally is the reason why a lot of us try watercolor as kids is because a set of watercolor paints tend to be inexpensive, and it's like a low there's a low cost of failure. It's not the material isn't expensive. Watercolor paper, while it can be expensive, you can just get like a cheap pad. It's one of those things where if you want to play around, it's not like playing around with oil paints in terms of the investment. You can get everything you need. Like you could even get a cheap like dollar store set of paints and then just a pad of what of a small pad of watercolor paper for like $8 at Michael's for less than and for less than $10 you can have everything you need to just start watercolor painting. But then again, you know what? I mean, I say that like, "Oh, you should try it." But at the same time, whenever someone tells me, "Hey, you should try oil painting. You would love it. It's a lot easier to control than people think." I'm like, I don't wanna." Yes, it's because the materials for oil painting are a little more expensive and you need to have proper ventilation, but I do realize that there is sort of a hypocrisy towards me telling people all the time, "Go ahead, try new stuff," when I'm not necessarily trying new stuff as much as I should. So, it's another case of do as I say, not as I do. But I do want to spend more time trying new mediums. I mean, hell, digital unto itself, I've been using it for a long time, but I still don't think I've mastered it. Of course, it's less about new mediums for me and more about spending time working on old mediums that I enjoy, you know, the charcoal pencil, breaking out the acrylics, and working with the watercolors. Let's see here. Katie says, I prefer plein air, gouache plein air over watercolor, as I can water down the gouache paints to achieve more transparency. Unlike watercolor, you can't necessarily up its opacity with white and gouache. And Paul says, ooh, I like gouache too. Looks great. Let's see here. Katie says to Paul, um, unfortunately, watercolor doesn't suit my stidum. My style and workflow. I prefer bolder, opaque colors. Plus, the medium is more flexible than watercolor, in my humble opinion. Hey, and Dylan is in the chat. Hey, Dylan, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Just talking art and process and materials. Um, and it's funny. I never really, I haven't tried gouache before. I'm subscribed to James Gurney's blog, and he mentions it all the time as one of his preferred mediums. I, for the most part, the way I got really into painting with acrylics was that was using watercolors when I was in high school, and like Katie, I could not get it as rich and opaque and bold as I liked. And at a certain point, I realized like I just got like one or two tubes of acrylic. I think I was taking a painting class. They had some acrylic that I could just grab and use without buying some of my own. And I started watering it down. And for a number of years, I used acrylic like people use watercolor, where I would use it straight out of the tube for opaque colors, and then I would use it watered down for lighter colors and glazing and that sort of thing. And I found that that worked pretty well for me. Although I did realize as I started to learn more, this wasn't in high school, but years later, I started seeing how if I were working with larger pieces, I was ruining the binding agent in the paint by doing it all with just water, and so I switched to medium, matte medium for watering down my paint, and that seemed to be kind of a nice compromise. I'll look at the excuse me, the chat in a second. I'm sitting here and actually thinking she's kind of got that Pepe Le Pew thing where I've got the white going down the body, and you're like, is she a skunk? Let's see here. It's kind of weird because I'm sitting there drawing, and I always have to keep reminding myself when I'm live streaming, like, make this a little bit bigger so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. Um, because it is so my natural instinct to draw so tiny that I can't put any detail in. Which is funny because I'm not a particularly detailed artist, so I don't know why I'm fighting that urge. I just, you know what? It's not about detail, it's about noodling. Putting in marks just to put in marks without them actually saying anything. Because I'm not a detailed artist, but I will noodle a piece to death if I'm given the opportunity. Something like this. So maybe just giving the costume kind of richer, warmer, more saturated browns, leather. And give her some boots. Some Puss in Boots. Out of the corner, this is weird. Is I'm looking down, and in my peripheral vision, I can see motion on the screen in front of me. Like I see the comments in the chat coming. I'm like, all right, stop drawing, look up. Yeah, believe it or not, I think that this color palette will work for me. Oh, I just realized I didn't give her a tail. And I can hear, speaking of tails, I can hear one of our cats freaking out upstairs, which she has a bad habit of doing, like just freaking out for freaking out's sake. And one of us will run up, be like, "What's wrong? What's going on? What's happening? You sick? You throwing up?" And then she'll just be sitting there with a cat toy in her mouth, looking at us like, "No, just want some attention." All right. Let's see here. Katie says, "Meowdy, guys." I like that. That might be what I'll call this piece. I might call this piece Meowdy. Oh no, I know what I'm gonna call it. Kitty up instead of giddy up. I don't know. We'll workshop it. Um, Katie says, "True. We should be able to do this thing we love and make a living from it." Well, I mean, that's the ongoing battle because some people are like, most people, a lot of people hate their jobs and don't get to do something they love. I kind of wish that nobody had to do something that they hated and that people's careers were more suited towards whatever their inner compass drove them to. And yeah, there's some jobs that nobody would want to do. And it's like, how do we handle that? And I don't have a good answer for that. But I think that a lot of people do spend their lives feeling like they wasted it simply because the thing that they're doing isn't what they were called to. And, whether it's medicine or teaching or drawing, or if there was a way to make a decent living, but have enough of your life left over where you're not so consumed with the making a living part that you actually have time to explore and do these other things, follow your passions a little bit. Let's see here. Paul says, I've never actually tried gouache, Katie. I think it looks great though. I use it on my digital art, not the same, but close. And Dylan's has lol. I basically do that too. Um, let's see here. Some good art tips here. Katie says, I saw at Five Below they had 100% cotton watercolor paper for $5. Not the same quality as Arches, but proves your point. Yeah, like I was saying, just $5 plus. I'm sure right next to the watercolor paper they had simple watercolor paints, and while I'm sure you get a better quality of watercolor from higher quality watercolor paints, for just digging around, yeah, what you get at like the simple store like that, it's like I tell myself, why don't I just play just for play's sake? Like I have a bunch of pieces that I want to do digitally or do as finished illustrations that I want to do in traditional media just for the experience. So I'm like redrawing finished digital pieces in traditional media just because I'm like, I want to have both. I want to see what the experience is of making it in different mediums or use the traditional media as the thumbnail for the digital version. Let's see here. And that's a good point here. Katie says gouache is essentially watercolor acrylics, um, and that's how I got into gouache. Which, yeah, that it combines the best of both worlds. And Paul says I had legendary cartoonist Ollie Harrington as a professor. He was a watercolor master. Now, see, that is nice to be able to have somebody there who knows the material so well. I don't think, I mean, I went to a fine art school and I don't think anybody there ever showed us any watercolor techniques or processes. So very, very nice. Very lucky to have somebody who, uh, who excels in that medium. I'm trying to think. I did have a lasso in here. Let me just pick a nice off-white to use for the rope. Let me go back and look at my thumbnails. I'm trying to decide how it was that I wanted the rope to be. Yeah, I guess I had it hanging out of the this circle a little bit. So let's see. Maybe if we have something kind of like this. There we go. So the hand that's on the hip is actually going to be holding the lasso. We'll have one of these ears covered by the hat. What's weird is now that I'm looking at this, I almost feel like this is sort of a Western version of Black Sad, which, if any of you guys are familiar with that anthropomorphic comic, Black Sad is one of the most amazing comics that I have ever read. Um, it's basically Raymond Chandler pulp detective novels, but with animals. So it's not just cats, but it's kind of like Animal. Okay, Raymond Chandler meets Animal Farm. That is the best description I can come up with. Like, it's gritty, pulp detective. Like, it is not cute and funny. It's like some tough, intense stuff, but done with cats. Um, I believe the artist name is Juanjo Guardino, and I cannot remember the name. I can't remember if it's the one artist writer. I thought it was a writer artist team. I can't remember if it was one person or two, and I don't have my copy of the first volume handy. But either way, Black Sad, amazing comic, a Spanish comic published by Dark Horse in the United States. Very much worth checking out. Let's see here. Um, so I'm back a few minutes in the chat here, like maybe 10 minutes behind. Katie says, I use my own custom palettes by Art Tool Kit. Tried dry gouache is my preferred sketching medium since it's convenient, so convenient to carry around. Um, yeah, you know what? That is actually a good idea. I should try, like, any medium that you want to experiment with. Like, if I wanted to learn how to work in oils, what I would probably do is get a set of oils and, like, not even a lot, just get like black, white, gray, and maybe, like, an umber and a sienna, and maybe, like, I don't know, something that it could work for a blue. Oh no, a yellow, a sienna, an ochre, and an umber. And just sketch instead of trying to do paintings. Just sketch, sketch figures, sketch landscapes, but the same way that you would take a sketchbook and just sketch around you to keep your hand busy. I think that's the best way to learn a new tool, is to just get yourself familiar with it by working with it all the time. And that's true whether it's watercolor, inking with a brush, inking with a nib, um, any type of drawing, any type of painting. It's just playing with it. Let's see here. Katie says here, you're good. And I'm not sure if that is related to one of my comments that I just made on the fly, but I will take it. Thank you. Um, let's see here. So Byron says, what the hell? I clicked on your comment and then it just flipped away. Let's see here. All right, here we go. So Byron says, one of the things that helps me to not noodle is just focus on the big shapes. If it doesn't help with readability, I ask myself if I really need it. No, I completely agree with you. For me, I do know myself well enough that I know I will noodle no matter what. And that's why, because I mean, now that I zoom out, you can see how tiny that color thumbnail is. The color thumbnail is like the size of the reference in my file. So I wish that I had the self-control to not noodle, and drawing super, super small thumbnails is my alternative. But it also allows me to draw multiple thumbnails quickly. Um, it makes me not afraid to try something random because if it doesn't work, I'm like, well, all right, it's not like I spent an hour rendering this. It's like I sketched in a little thing and it didn't work, move on to the next thing. Allows me to just try stuff out. Whoops. Stylus is trying to get away from me. I need to stop sitting it up here on top of my tablet. Let's see here. Katie says, right, a nice sepia color. Yeah, a good sepia. Like that's the thing. I want to get back to working monochromatic, doing studies where it's just black and white and one other color. And a sepia or an umber is really good for that. Just in terms of like working with paints and getting back into traditional media. It keeps you from drowning in options and choices and the difficulty of working with being overwhelmed with color. Because I think the big problem with color is not that color is quote unquote hard. It's that, like, remember, like, okay, I'm super, super old. So the iMac, the computer, when Apple first introduced the iMac, it was this little monitor. It basically looked like an old, like, space age TV, but it had a computer built into it. And the thing that they kept saying was like, you have millions of colors in your screen. Like, it was like a whole big deal that it had such a great color range in terms of the monitor, as opposed to originally the 256 colors that GIFs have, and then the 500 and something, or like, I think it was like 1,000 colors that we started having before LCD monitors, when they had CRT monitors. And then when Apple introduced a computer and said it's got millions of colors. And I feel like when you just have, you know, just a tube of primaries in front of you, and you're just like, with this, I can make all of these different things, and I'm surrounded by options. It's somehow that, like, so I feel like that's kind of the challenge of working with colors. You're overwhelmed by all of these options. You know what? And in talking here, I realize if I don't do it now, I'm gonna forget to put that tail in. So let me just. There we go. And then just make it a little bit rounder here at the end, or a little fluffier, a little bit of a fluffy tail. And then put some white on the tip. Let's see here. Dylan says, on Wednesday, I got a book on J.C. Leindecker's artwork. I love it, and I want to do master studies. It has a chronology at the back, and we share the same birthday, only 124 years apart. Well, who knows? You might be the Leindecker reincarnate. Yeah, Leindecker is an amazing artist. I don't have any full-on books of Leindecker, but Illustration Magazine had a really good issue that was like all Leindecker, and I got that issue. And then I have a few other art books that are published by Illustration Magazine that have sections on them. So I have like, there's a book on masters of illustration from a classic American illustration. It's got quite a few Leindecker pieces in it. I've got a book that was published by Illustration Magazine that's on the arts and processes and techniques of master illustrators. Leindecker's got stuff in there. I mean, I should have a Leindecker book, but at a certain point, I've mentioned this before, I had to stop buying art books of every single artist that I fell in love with, because I'm just like, I'm running out of space. I'm at full capacity. But as far as artists go, I mean, Leindecker really feels like he's somebody who, if you're going to make an exception, Leindecker is somebody you should make an exception for. That said, I don't know any books on Rembrandt. I just recently got a book. My wife and I, our friend Theron, got me a really nice book on Diego Velázquez for my birthday. So that's probably like the last major art book that I received, and it's a hefty tome. All right, let me get back into the chats because I get further and further away. Katie says, I just draw super tiny thumbnails in my pocket notebook. That is also a good way to go. Let's see here. Katie says my cats are crazy like that too. Let's see here. So Dylan, as far as the name for this piece, likes Kitty Up, while Paul likes Meowdy, but also says, Kitty Up is nice too. Meowdy, Kitty Up, just have it all, put it all together. Um, or I could have it say Kitty Kaye, motherfucker. Let's see here. Katie says you should give her white gloves, hands or gloves. Now, I did have gloves in my rough sketch. I want to say I did, but regardless, I intended to give her gloves. And here's an interesting thing. Now we're getting into the point of, do I want to start changing things up? Because do I want to make the gloves the exact brown that's the boots, or do I want to make them maybe, because in my instincts when I see these, I just think plain old work gloves, which to be honest are the same color really that I used for the earth. Like those kind of like pale yellow work gloves. That's kind of what I see for this. Maybe I just turn the saturation up a tiny bit, like, and see, this is the thing I like in Procreate is that thing that when you move the slider around, that you can see the difference between the color that you currently have picked and the color that you're going to shift to. And I like that because then I can kind of say, all right, I want to make it a little bit lighter, slightly more saturated. Actually, let me bring it down in terms of I'm going to bring it down, just make it slightly lighter because I'm going to move it towards yellow a little bit more. So it's not a huge difference, but it does feel more like those work gloves that I'm thinking of. But you know what? See, that's the thing. That's what I imagined, and now it feels like it fights with the piece. It feels like they jump out more. So I actually do feel like it does need to be closer to the costume. So let's see if we go back to the costume, but then just make it paler and lighter. Yeah, paler, lighter, it does need to be a little bit warmer. Yeah, I think that it won't fight the costume or it won't jump out as much if I bring it down. So the gloves are going to be slightly different from that. And I'm tempted to make the boots this color too. Or a little belt. Oop. Damn it. Ugh. Stylist does not want to stay up there. Because, see, if you look at something like this, true, this woman's hat is slightly darker than her vest, but for the most part, the vest and the hat are color coordinated. Whereas in this one, she's got a black hat, but she's not wearing black anywhere else. This is another one. For her, the vest and the pants match, but the hat is different. That is black and white, so you can't really tell, but it really looks like the vest, her jacket and her skirt probably look like they are close in color. I mean, it's really hard to tell, the black and white photo. And the hat is probably a different color. You look at something like this. Now, her hat is not the same yellow as her shirt, but being that we're looking at the underside and the shadow of it, and it's mostly in shadow, it's probably more of a straw hat, so kind of a really pale yellow, but in the shadows, it kind of matches the bright yellow shirt, and we're seeing mostly shadow of that hat, so it kind of creates a unifying element. And that's something that I'm kind of playing with, is how much do I want to have something that stands out versus something that brings everything together? Well, we'll come back to that. Let's see here. Um, let's see here. Dylan says, for the past hour-ish, I've been toying around with my condenser mic that my mom got me about 5 years ago that I haven't used yet. I might use it for my videos and or to start a podcast. I'm not sure yet. Um, and it's funny. I feel like, so the mic that I am on right now is a Blue Yeti mic, and it's one that I've heard recommended by a lot of people in terms of a beginning podcaster, like an entry level mic that's not too expensive. I want to say it was like $150, $120. Like, it was something super reasonable. It was enough that I'm like, it's worth spending the money on, but it wasn't something that was like a break the bank thing. And once I did it, like, so I've been using this mic, I want to say probably like 2 years now. And I feel like it has made the quality of the audio better, considering the fact that I don't have a mixing board. I don't go through and edit out sound pops or weird things, or sweeten the sounds, or give my voice a little bit more of a richer baritone. Like, there's a lot of processing that really professional podcasts do. But for just doing my own work, what it was is whatever room I was in was always super echoey. And I feel like this does a good enough job of picking up my voice without picking up the really weird mouth sounds, because my mouth, I tend to make there's little noises that people have complained about in the past that they can hear my mouth make while I'm talking. And this microphone does a better job of picking up the sound while reducing those mouth noises and not picking up all of the sounds in the room. Um, I would just say I didn't even think of it as a podcast. The way I started, and some people who've been watching my channel for a long time will remember, the way that this whole thing started is that I used to just play time lapses. And then what I would do is I would record audio to go with the time lapse. I would record it just with my iPhone. And that was fine. It was decent audio quality, but not great. And it picked up too much of those mouth sounds that I'm talking about. Um, but just start with that instead of really trying to think of a podcast. I mean, because the only reason why I switched to doing live videos is because I stopped thinking. I had difficulty thinking of things off the top of my head to just talk about, and talking with you guys and just responding to you guys in the chat. It's like each stream is like its new thing, and you guys are a part of making it, as opposed to me having to think up, oh, this is what I want to say, and it's like a mini essay. It's a lot more conversational. But just recording a short time lapse and putting that up with a little bit of voiceover, just describing what you were thinking about while you were drawing, I think that's a really good way to start. It doesn't have to be like long, hour long, half-hour long things. Most of my early videos, I tried to keep them under 10 minutes. I think a 5 to 10 minute time lapse with just a little bit of just talking about what you were thinking, um, why you're making the piece, what you're trying to go for, or what you're trying to learn from it. That's plenty. That is plenty. I say just make some just for shits and giggles and see how it comes out. Let's see here. So Dylan mentions, I've been hearing about pulp style a lot lately, but I don't know what makes pulp art pulp. Um, let's see here. I am sure that there are going to be people in the chat that have opinions. So let me go through and get caught up, and then we're going to come back to the pulp thing. So let's see here. Paul mentions I wasn't a fine arts major. He said, "Oh, this is back to Ollie Harrington. He taught political cartooning, and I took it as an elective. He was a game changer for me. Google Ollie Harrington when you get a chance. He lived an incredible life." Let me get my little post-its. Voila! You write that down. I know all these digital devices, and yet I'm using a pen to write stuff down, but it's just easier. Let's see here. Oh, Chris is in the chat. I just realized, hey, Chris, how you doing? See here. So let's see here. Whoop, let's scroll back up, 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 up. Well, in terms of pulp art, so when I think of pulp art, so this is going back to Dylan mentioning pulp art. I would say, well, pulp magazines are a genre of literary fiction. Well, they're a genre of fiction that's usually crime and mystery, and detective novels. And they started as small paperback novels, and I think they were called pulp magazines, both because they were printed on cheap pulp paper, but also because they tended to be sort of like, I don't want to call them trashy, but it was implied that they were trashy novels in the sense of gratuitous violence, sexy dames, danger, like that it appealed, like that it was kind of like a lowbrow action movie. Like it just appealed to the base instincts of just violence and drinking and sex, and very primal. Now, here's the thing. I think all of that is true of a lot of pulp stories, but I think there's a reason why those things are appealing to people. It's because they are very primal. Deep fear and danger and sexuality and all that stuff. Those are things that it's exciting, because I think for the most part, a lot of us lead lives that don't have as much excitement in it as we want. And so when we talk about pulp art, I think that starts with a lot of the covers of those pulp magazines. So if you were to just Google pulp magazines or pulp novels and look at do an image search, you would see the artwork on that is kind of like, if you look at retro sci-fi, if you think of like the sci-fi magazines and the early sci-fi novels and stuff that looks kind of like the covers to early like EC comics, work like that, but instead of it being aliens and robots, it's usually like, gangsters, or you've got some woman who's got like a bottle of wine and a knife behind her back, or some guy, holding his gut because he's been shot and he's like backed in an alley, or you've got like two guys wrestling, or a guy with a machine gun mowing people down, or you've got cops shooting it out with gangsters. That's kind of the pulp thing. It's just imagery that's painted in a kind of a classic 40s and 50s illustration style, but focusing on stories and imagery from crime stories. So that is what I think of as pulp art. And it is stuff that I'm sure it went through eras of popularity after the pulp novels kind of went away. But I would say that it's classic illustration, meaning illustration from like the 30s through the 1930s through the 1950s and early 60s. I mean, I feel like that stuff has definitely made a resurgence in the modern era as people have rediscovered a lot of forgotten artists who are amazing. So let's see here. And everyone is wishing Dylan good luck on his podcast or his YouTubing, and I wish you luck as well. I look forward to it. Let's see here. So Katie mentions, you should do a hook-shaped tail. When a cat has that shape, it means they're happy and curious. I may play with the tail shape more, although I don't want to get too wrapped up in it. I don't want it to become something that's distracting, but I may play with that shape, change it up. And Paul mentions weird. Sometimes giving yourself limitations makes you more creative. I think that's in response to my comments a while back about monochromatic working, very simply. And Dylan says a reincarnation of Linedecker, that would be really, really cool. Says I'm halfway there. I'm gay and he was gay. Just got to get to his level of art. Well, you know what? Well, I'm glad you don't have to be closeted like he was. I'm glad that we live in a much more accepting era, because I mean he is an amazing artist and deserves to be loved for all of him and the work that he created. And I mean, and he was known for drawing the most beautiful men in the world. So keep working on those beautiful men. Let's see here. And Paul says we can't see the tail. I don't know if if it can't see it now, but maybe it was the first time I drew it, it wasn't showing up or something. Let's see here. And Paul says I feel like if your last name is pronounced Linedecker, you have to be an artist. And Dylan says the boots with the fur. Now, are you saying that I should add fur to the boots, like fur-lined boots? Only because I was definitely trying to keep it more like these are the boots, not these exact boots. I don't know what I was going to put on as a pattern, but I grabbed these as reference in terms of this is the shape and the cut that I'm going for. And in fact, I'm probably going to try and keep the detail on it to a minimum. But really, these boots would be like perfect for this character. And hey, Red joined us. Good to see you, Red. Thank you for making it. By the way, I'm going to stop drawing and just get caught up on the comments here, because I have some plans with my wife after the stream, and I promised her I would not go long today. So we're going to wrap up the comments here, and then we're going to close out the stream. So let's see here. Red says furry, Jeremy, confirmed. You know what? I would not say that I am a furry. I have no costumes, but I do think anthropomorphic art, I'm an admirer of it. And it's kind of like, it's fun to play in that sandbox, even if I am not even though I'm not a member of the club. So let's see here. And Dylan says, yeah, that's really cool to have a tool for color picking. Yeah, when I was going through there and selecting, it's that thing of, just being able to decide. Because when I'm thinking about colors, I tried to get out of the habit of just going lighter or darker. And I try to think also in terms of, if I'm going to change a color, I may change, instead of changing it just light or dark, I will only change the lightness or darkness a little bit. I'll change the value slightly, but then I will also make it more or less saturated and warmer or cooler. So I try to change, instead of making one big change, I will make a slight change to the hue, the value, and the saturation. So subtler changes, but changing all three values. Let's see here. Let's see here. Paul says, maybe I'm wrong about the tail. Never mind. I'm going to report myself. I mean, hey, like I said, this is fun, having the feedback and the interaction while I'm making things. And honestly, you guys get me to try stuff that I wouldn't try off the top of my head. I mean, let's not forget the Helltar adventure. Let's see here. Oh, in terms of Dylan and his mic, he says that the brand is newer, and I'm not sure if they even sell it anymore, but I would say it was decently cheap, like 45 to 120. And I also got a few other things that weren't part of the kit, so it was about 120 to 200. All right, that's a pretty decent decent deal. And they say, for instance, I got a video cam for my laptop, and I think my laptop has a better camera. I think my laptop has a better camera now. Well, that's good. That's good. In fact, I recently got a new camera specifically for capturing time lapses, but I'm gonna wait until I have time to make some more of those videos and kind of work through the bugs before going deeper. So let's see here. And Dylan says, yeah, pulp was more cheap and magazines like the Saturday Evening Post were more expensive. Katie says, that sounds like my kind of thing. Yeah, definitely check out some of those old pulp magazines. I mean, here's the thing. I have read some older crime novelists, but I still have yet to read an actual Raymond Chandler novel. So that is one of the things that he remains on the top of my list and kind of at the forefront of my mind of going back and reading old crime pulp stories. Let's see here. So Dylan says, thank you, Jeremy. I already make videos, but I haven't made any for the last 2 months because of personal reasons. But I think they'll come back within the next 2 months or so. All right, well, I'll go check out some of your videos. Cool. But yeah, I'm glad you're getting the equipment together and getting the time and the space to start producing more. And Dylan also says, yeah, I'm glad I'm in a more accepting time. I would love to draw attractive men. Well, go for it. And let's see here. And keep the boots furless. Yeah, I will. Well, I think that we're going to stick with the Western boots for now. All right, guys. So like I said, I'm going to, oh wait, no, there are a few more comments. Okay, last couple of comments here. And Dylan says, when I bought the Landecker book, I also bought tracing paper. That is definitely a good investment. Well, might I recommend, along with some tracing paper, it's not too expensive, but at most office supply stores, they have pads of vellum. And vellum is just thicker tracing paper. So the way that tracing paper is kind of thin and easy to tear, particularly if you erase, all vellum is just tracing paper that's as durable as just normal copy paper, photocopy paper, so you can really get in and rework it. But I use that for a lot when I didn't want to use a light box to trace things. But yeah, Leyendecker is, maybe I haven't done a master study on the stream in a while. Maybe I'll pick a Leyendecker piece and do a master study just to kind of hang out and celebrate your Leyendecker book. All right, guys. So Katie says, thank you so much for the fabulous stream and the drawing. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you as always. And we made some progress. I didn't go back and redraw the figure, but I've got a nice color thumbnail that I'm happy with. So from here, the next step is I'm going to go through and do a final drawing of the character and then go into digital painting. And I think for this one, I may try just drawing, like turn the line work on a low opacity and really try to do the whole thing with just painted color. Do it just with color and not lines, or maybe make sure that the lines are all color. Do something more painterly and not as line work influenced. We'll see how it goes. It's it'll be a process as always. And hey, I see Corey Kerr in the chat coming here, catch us at the tail end. He says, I like that thumbnail. Well, thank you. I'm glad it's that was the most of what the stream was today, was working on this thumbnail. But normally I would do a lot more thumbnails, but I feel like this one captures the amount of all the colors I want to have in it. So before we jump out, if you guys enjoy this stream, please definitely hit that like button and share it with other people who may also be interested in drawing or process or art talk. And like I said, we have a bonus live stream tomorrow. So Monday night, Pacific Standard, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We do artist office hours. So we'll have the Discord channel open, and you guys can just come in, and as opposed to typing in the chat, you can get in and we can just talk in audio, real-time conversation while we're drawing. You can ask me questions. You can post stuff in the Discord channel for me to do drawovers for, or just for feedback and talking while we're drawing. And in the meantime, I also been doing a long-running series where I'm doing studies from art books. I call it an art book study group. And I've been working on a long running series, working my way through Walt Reed's The Figure. It's I think one of the best books on the fundamentals of drawing. So that's all for Patreon subscribers for as little as $2 a month. That gets you in the door. And there are higher tiers for higher rewards, but for $2 a month, you get in, you're in the Patreon exclusive Discord server. You all have access to all of the previous art book study groups, all of the previous artist office hours. So there's probably a couple hundred hours of live streams there at this point for you guys to watch through. So those are all there for you to check out. You'll get access to a digital archive so you can read my comic books online as well. So head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy and check that out. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. And for those who would like a free digital sketchbook, if you're not already on my newsletter, head on over to newsletter.jeremy.net. I send out a free monthly newsletter. It has blog posts about what I'm reading, what's inspiring me creatively, what I'm watching on TV, whatever new works I have going on, just sharing a little bit of my daily process of making artwork. So head on over to newsletter.jeremy.net and sign up over there. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you read digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It is a psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. Or you can pick up my most recent project, Morning Star. It is a retelling of Lucifer's Fall from Heaven as a Western. So it's an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains the conclusion, issues 5 through 8. Both volumes have extensive back matter, character designs, thumbnails, page layouts, photo reference. I basically show you how I put the entire comic book together. And if you want to check out what's inside these books before you buy, go to the homepage of my YouTube channel. It's just youtube.gerimi. I think a lot of you are there right now, although I'm streaming on Twitch and Facebook as well. But if you go to the homepage of my YouTube channel and scroll down to book flip throughs, you can see there's videos where I flip through the books. You can see what's inside before you buy. All right, guys. Again, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you guys hang out with me. It's talking process, talking materials, talking shop. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. That's it for now. Go be creative.